If you're the parent of an adult child that is moving to Japan, this video is for you. I'm sure you've seen the headlines. There is visa prices going up, there anti-foreigner sentiment, there's companies out there that want to abuse their foreign workers, there's earthquakes again. All of this might make you think that moving to Japan is a mistake. But I'm here to tell you that those are headlines. What's exciting, what makes it into the news. And your child is not moving into a headline. They're moving into daily life. Boring daily life, yet incredibly exciting because it is new. So let's talk about that. Hi, my name is Vicky. I have lived in Hokkaido for over 10 years. I have lived in Japan since 2007, and I'm also a parent. So for that reason, I know what you're going through. I haven't sent my child overseas, but I definitely get it a lot more than I did when I first moved here. So first, take a deep breath. Everything you're feeling, worry, fear, grief, anxiety, all of that is valid. Your child is moving across the world, and you are helpless when it comes to trying to help them. And that is scary. That absolutely is scary. And so, yeah, that's okay. So between you and I, feel all those feelings, and don't be hard on yourself. So I hope with this video that I can help you calm some of those fears, maybe just show you a little bit of daily life and how not everything is what you see on the news, what you see on TikTok, what you see on YouTube. That, yeah, life here is boring. Once you get into it, life can be pretty boring and pretty routine. Before we go on, of course, if you have any questions at any point in this video, feel free to make a comment. I try to read them and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And if not, somebody else will also share their experience, or please share your experience. If you are an ALT that's already here, share your experience in the comments. Help some of these parents relieve some of their fears. So first, your child, it feels weird calling them a child because they're adults, but let's be honest, they will always be our child, right? So your child is like basically over the moon excited. They've been wanting this for quite some time, I'm sure. This is like a dream come true. And so it's our job to support them, to not overburden them with fears, with our fears, and to, quietly support them. However that may be. Some parents support with finances, some parents support with just being great cheerleaders, and just generally step out of their way so they can go experience this, really awesome experience as an adult. So when I first got here, my mom, before I got on the plane, my mom asked me to message her when I arrived at the hotel the first day. Like, she really needed to know that I was safe, and I get it. But I'll be honest, that's really hard to do. Especially if you're coming on the JET program. The first few days feels like nonstop chaos, a nonstop marathon, chaotic marathon maybe. Of course, you have time on the plane, but you're on a plane, right? You can't really message. As soon as you get to Tokyo, it's crowds trying to get through immigration, trying to get through customs, go straight to the hotel, meet a bunch of people, have a meeting, go to bed, wake up early because you have jet lag. There's a lot going on. So if they message you, consider yourself lucky. If they don't, consider that they are having fun, okay? So I would say for me, it was like the first 4 or 5 days was absolutely crazy. And I did try to message my mom. But like I said, it was kind of tough. I also messaged her, when it was middle of the day for me, which meant it was the middle of the night for her, and she freaked out, right? Like, why is she getting a message in the middle of the night? If you get a message in the middle of the night, breathe. It's probably nothing. It's just your child checking in. After that, they will probably be sent to their placement. So I'm talking specifically for people who are coming on jet. Other dispatch companies might be slightly different, but then they'll be put in their placement. Now, depending on whether they're dispatch or on the jet program, they may jump into work right away. If it's jet program, they probably have about 1 or 2 weeks of downtime, and depending on how quickly they are able to set up their phone and internet will depend on how quickly they can contact you. When I first came, it was like a month before I could get internet. But now things are a lot faster, so hopefully they can have a phone contract right away and send you a message. Once all that's kind of done and like that excitement of getting here is kind of calmed down a bit, people go into what's called the honeymoon phase. Everything's amazing, everything's cool. So your son or daughter is going to be roaming around the town, trying to see things, get to know about things, meet their students maybe in the work environment. And all of this is also exhausting, but it also takes away time that they can possibly have to message us back home. And yes, as a parent, I want to say, oh, you must message me, but let them have fun. If something terrible happens, you're going to hear about it, I'm sure. So this honeymoon depends on the person. I've seen some people, it lasts a couple of weeks. I've seen some people last like 6 months. Of course, if it lasts 6 months, I'm guaranteed they're going to message you at some point. So what's happening, during this time, like after the honeymoon, what's going on? They're starting to build a routine. Okay, they're starting to learn what schools they need to go to. What their daily work life is like. In some cases, they're trying to get their driver's license. In others, they are working out the bus or train system. For me, there was a lot of city hall stuff. I spent way too much time in the city hall at the beginning, and admittedly, every year I spend way too much time in the city hall, but that's part of daily life, and it's frustrating. Some of the fears that you might be having, and I'm sure your son or daughter might also be having, are regards to language and cultural differences. Language, it's tough. It really is tough. Even if you studied Japanese in university back home, coming here, there's dialects all over the country. And so it's not going to be textbook Japanese. So they'll be adjusting to that new Japanese or the new style, the pronunciation, whatever, the dialect. And if their Japanese is really low, they're going to start learning how to communicate. So daily Japanese. And that takes time. And during that time, it is pretty isolating. It can be lonely. And I think as a parent, this is around the time that it's good to send a message, every now and then. Hey, how's it going? I miss you. I love you. To kind of make sure that they have some sort of contact if they do feel isolated. I have seen many ALTs who come here that are so isolated and they get depressed and they go home. They break contract right away and go home. I don't say it's rare, but it's also not super common. It does happen though. Every year, something like that does happen. It's really sad because I feel like they're missing out on an opportunity. And, sometimes we're just not ready. And that's okay. I, in general, in my experience, believe that you should give something a try at least for a year. And maybe that's because I'm already almost 50 or I've already experienced all of this. When I was younger, a year seemed like eternity. Now that I'm older, a year seems like not enough. But give yourself at least a year to try this out. And I find like within a year, the younger you are, the less time I think it takes to get used to a situation. But in about a year, you'll find that they'll have a routine that they like. They know how to do things, and they start feeling like this is their daily life. In regards to dealing with the isolation, a lot of people say, well, if you're in the countryside, you're going to be more isolated. Not necessarily true. Uh, in the countryside, you need to put yourself out there. So I find that ALTs who are in the countryside actually learn the language faster, especially if they get involved in the community, if they get out there and start interacting. One of the things I did here, I live in a small town. It is a tourist town, so there's a lot of people that come and go, but they don't stay. But there is a lot of people that still live here. And so what I found for me is I take a walk every morning. So every morning I go for a walk around 5 in the morning. Obviously not everybody is a morning person. And I run into a lot of people, especially older folks. And at first they're kind of like a little concerned that I'm on their street. But once they start seeing me on a daily basis and I'm saying good morning to them in Japanese, they start opening up. They start smiling. They start saying good morning to me instead of grunting. Because there are people out here that grunt because they don't know how to interact with us. And just to say, those people that do like grunt at you when you say good morning or afternoon or whatever, when it happens once, you feel like, ugh, I guess they don't like foreigners, or you feel kind of personally attacked. But the more that you live here, you start to realize, no, they just don't know how to interact with us because they haven't really had much of an experience. So if you can get over that and just be like, hey, good morning. Next time I see grunter, good morning, good morning. Eventually they start, Ohio gozaimasu, start saying good morning, and they start bowing, like maybe not the deep, bow, but let's be honest, most people don't do that deep bow you see in movies. But yeah, excuse me. Getting involved in the community, putting yourself out in the community, going to community events, even when it's scary, trust me, it's scary. It's so scary, in the sense that like I'm not an extrovert. I really like my alone time. I like being inside the house. I like going places, but I like going on my own. Even back home, I may be friendly, but it takes a lot out of me to socialize. And so being here, trying to socialize in a different language with people that I don't know how they feel about me is exhausting, but it has been very rewarding. And so find something that not you, encourage your son or daughter to get involved in the community in a way that they enjoy. They may not be able to do the same sports or activities that they like. Like, for example, my husband was doing judo in university, and the first city we moved into, they had a judo club, but it was only for like teenagers. So he couldn't join. But that's okay. Find something else, right? Now my husband gets involved with community events and a local NPO, and I do too when I'm not working. And all of this has created a situation where we network and meet new people and get invited to things and get told about really cool events that we wouldn't have known if we weren't involved in the community. Getting to be part of the community, I think, is really important, but also having other expat friends. I think not being too much in one or the other, but having a nice balance of both is very healthy. Now, why the expat friends? The biggest reason is those expat friends help keep you grounded in your identity, in your culture, in your language. It kind of relieves some of the pressure that we have here, always being on, always being, friendly and perfect. When we have expat friends, they understand what we're going through, and they can be a really great source of support. Now, the reason why I say don't make only expat friends is because expats leave, okay? They might leave before you, and then a new friend will come in. My husband and I used to joke, like, we're getting tired of this revolving door of friendship because we've been here so long. And eventually we just stopped being friends with all expats and just found like a few key close friends that, ended up being long-term ALTs as well. So finding that nice balance, and finding that routine. And that's usually what most people do. So yeah, find the routine, and hopefully contract doesn't get broken early. Now, speaking of contract, there are reasons to break contract, and I feel like there's a lot of valid reasons. And so no one should never feel a need to, what's the word, to feel shame for breaking contracts. I've seen contracts broken because a parent died. I've seen contracts broken because family problems back home. I've seen contracts broken because of a toxic work environment. Those are all valid, and I would never encourage anyone to stay here or force themselves to stay here in situations like that. So otherwise, small difficulties that build up, you know, as long as you're safe, physically and emotionally safe, there's going to be difficulties here, and that's part of the growing, part of the learning, and, you know, getting over them, okay? So speaking of part of the learning, your child, your son or daughter, is going to change. The person you put on the plane, you know, a year ago, and they come back, is going to be a different person, in a good way, almost always in a good way. They're out here being independent more so than they have ever been back home, probably. Okay, obviously this is very general. But being in Japan, and I think this goes for any country, being in any country that's not your own, it changes you in a positive way. It forces you to grow. It forces you to learn. It teaches you resilience. It teaches you patience and empathy. And these are all obviously valuable traits to have. And of course, so there are some situations where I have seen that it taught none of those. But in general, I'd say, just like the news headlines, those who turned out not like that, they make the news. They make the YouTube news or whatever. But for the most part, I think everybody changes in a positive way. The downside of that is, of course, life goes on. In the first few years that I was here, I lost both my grandparents, an uncle that I loved. I mean, I love my grandparents, but like this uncle was like, he was everything for me. My husband lost his grandfather, and friends moved on. Like, I had friends that got married. I had lost friends. That one just blows my mind. Like, life goes on. Life goes on, and we forget that. And when that happens, those things are pretty grounding, like pretty, like bringing you back down to earth. And it is those times that we need support. And it's so hard to do as a parent because you're not here. You can't physically hug your child. You can't physically comfort them. And that becomes a learning experience for you too. Not being able to parent the way you want to. So life goes on, and that's a hard one. That was a really difficult one to learn here. And of course, life goes on for us here too. Some of the hardest things, I think, for my mom and my husband's mom is they couldn't take part in milestones of our lives because we were here. You know, my son and daughter were born here. They, you know, they can't be a part of their lives like they could if we were back in Canada or the US. Now, I was very lucky that for my son, my mom came here and was able to be here for like the first 3 months of his life. And then my mother-in-law came and spent, you know, about 2 months here with him as well. So those things are, you know, things to consider if your son or daughter ends up living here long term. In regards to my daughter, when she was born in COVID, right at the beginning of COVID. And my mother-in-law was going to come and spend, you know, a couple months here with her, you know, be here for her birth, and obviously couldn't. Like I said, life goes on. So those are kind of some of the downsides, especially if your son or daughter is going to live here long term. So as a parent, what can you do where you are? Like I said, it feels really hard because you are far away. You are, you know, what, 10-hour, 16-hour plane ride away from your child. we need support. We need support from our parents. I'm not talking about financial support. I'm talking about just emotional support. Uh, Sometimes it's hard, but we need understanding as well. Uh, so be there for us. Be there for your son or daughter. I think, of course, you cannot stop your life for whenever they call, but be open to their contact with you. Listen to what they have to say. Let them vent without trying to fix the situation. It's hard. We always want to fix their situation, but let them vent. Let them talk it out. Let them know that you are willing to listen to whatever they have to say, good or bad, and that you will support them. I think that is like one of the most critical things for me, was having my mom be able to listen to me when I was, needing to vent, when I was angry at my coworker, or when something didn't go right for me. And of course, when I was struggling with whether or not to return home, she listened to me. And I think the most important thing she did is she didn't tell me what to do. She didn't tell me come home. She didn't tell me stay. She let me talk it out. And she would ask questions, kind of pull out my thoughts, do that. Costs nothing. Takes some time. It does take some time, but it doesn't cost anything. And always check up on them. Always check up on your kiddos. A text message there and here and there. And no, for the most part, we are worried about you too. I think about my mom every day. Not in like, oh my God, I miss her so much. I do miss her. But she's on my mind all the time. And even though I don't message her every day, she is constantly on my mind. I'm wondering how she's doing. I have the reverse problem. I hear about something happening back home. We're like, oh my gosh, is she okay? Like, for example, like I said, I'm from Canada. I'm from Alberta. There's a forest fire. I'm like, where? Is my mom okay? And luckily, she usually messages me before news gets to me. But yeah, being that support for them is great. And do know that they are thinking about you. They do miss home. But Japan is also really exciting. I think, too, just kind of moving on here, one of the biggest fears that my mom goes through, that my husband's parents go through, that my friends go through, are the earthquakes. This is especially true if you are not from a country where earthquakes are common. Earthquakes happen here. They happen a lot. My first one was kind of exciting, but I think I'm an outlier. I absolutely am fascinated by the science of earthquakes, weather patterns. So the first one was like, whoa. But for another friend of mine who also came from Alberta, the first earthquake, she was calling me. It's like, are you okay? Did you feel that? What's going on? Okay. And that's okay. That's okay. We all deal with it differently. Your son or daughter is very quickly going to start learning about what to do in earthquake situations because it's such a part of life here. Now, when I say we get earthquakes often, what you see on the news, we don't get those all the time. Okay? That's what you see on the news. And yes, I'll admit that I feel like we're getting more and more earthquakes recently. But in general, we are set up to handle most earthquakes. Okay? Now, what I recommend to your child is to make sure anytime there's a big earthquake, if they're able to just send a quick message, Mom, I'm okay. Dad, I'm okay. And what I'd recommend to you as a parent is find out exactly where your child is living, what prefecture, what city, what part of Japan. Find as much information as you can about that area. And if you want, even try and find out like, hey, where's the emergency evacuation place? What are the frequencies of earthquakes there? Just to help calm you down. Okay. Granted, some people might do this and it might just raise their anxiety way up. But like I said, in general, we have a lot of earthquakes. Most of them are not ones that we need to be super worried about. Just to give you an idea of my situation, I live in a small town. I live on a small coastal town that has a backdrop of a volcano. So, like when my mom heard that, she's like, "No, no, that's not okay." um, tsunami, earthquake, volcano, it just all seems terrible. But once again, the town is set up in a certain way that there are early warnings. We are trained to a certain degree to take care of ourselves and to be able to take care of our neighbors. Luckily for me, my children go to an elementary school that is a designated evacuation center. So like if something happens during school, I just evacuate to where they already are, which is a huge relief for me. But one of my schools is right on the coast. One of the schools I teach at is right on the coast. And I did have to do a tsunami evacuation last summer, I think it was. Yeah, last summer. And it was pretty scary. It was pretty scary. I think a lot of Japan got hit with this tsunami warning, and I had to evacuate. And I evacuated with my coworkers. I met my children there and my husband. And to see how the town came together to help not only the community, but also a lot of foreigners who were stranded in our town, just relieved a lot of anxiety about future earthquakes, future tsunamis. It wasn't perfect, but man, I felt pretty safe. And I think most places are like this. Funny thing though, I felt pretty safe. I read the newspaper like the week later, and there was people saying, "Oh yeah, the town wasn't ready for this. They weren't sufficiently equipped for this," and all sorts of like negative stuff. I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" This was the most organized evacuation I have ever seen. So even like things that I feel were very well done, even the Japanese people are like, "No, we can do better." So hopefully that helps alleviate some of the fears that you may have. Living on a coastal town, working on in a coastal school, we do get drills, evacuation drills for tsunami, for earthquakes. Not so much for the volcano, but we all know what to do for the most part. And to give you a bit of an example of how like part of normal life this is for us. Like I said, I've been here over 14 years or over 10 years in Hokkaido. 14 years. It's been 14 years. My children go to school here. I remember the first big earthquake we actually had in Hokkaido. My son was like 2 years old. Alarms blaring. I get my son, put him under the table with me as things are falling off our fridge. And it's early morning, and my son's like, "Mom, the earthquake's over. I'm tired." And we're still shaking. Things are falling off the fridge, rattling. I was like, no, we got to hang over. It's like, no, Ma, the earthquake's over. So that's a child's view, right? This last year we had 2 biggish earthquakes in our area, and 2 tsunami warnings, 1 advisory. And for those, my children were also like, "God, I'm tired. Can we just go back to bed?" But, that was after they started to feel safe. Obviously, initially, like my kids were quick. They were quicker than I was. I woke them up. They got under the table. Once everything kind of calmed down. My kids were already packing like our, runaway bag. I forget what it's called in English, but, evacuation kit or whatever. And they knew exactly what to do. So much so that one earthquake that I told you that was in the summer, I had the school car, and I figured I'm passing right by my house. I'll pick up my kids, my one daughter I couldn't pick up because she was with her preschool, but my son was on vacation with my husband at home, summer vacation. Picked them up. My son's coming out with his backpack ready to go. And he's like, "Mom, what are you doing?" I said, "We're going to the evacuation." "You can't drive." Like, he was so dead serious. "You can't drive." And like trying to explain the gray area for him was really tough. But once again, that is normal for them. They've lived here most of their lives, and this is just daily life. We take care, we don't let it affect our lives. And it doesn't, in the sense that like life doesn't stop. I was talking to my students about this one a couple weeks ago, actually. And I said, hey, we have lots of earthquakes, don't we? And yeah, some of the kids were like, yeah, are they scary? And some kids are like, yeah, they're scary. And some kids like, they happen. And I said, you know what? Where I come from, we get tornadoes. And like, they're like, what? I couldn't live there. I can't believe it. I would never live there. I said, well, a lot of people think the same about Japan, right? So like, I'm not saying we live in Tornado Alley, but we get a good handful of tornadoes in Alberta. At least when I was a kid, we did. And forest fires. We get lots of forest fires. But we are trained to handle, how to evacuate, what to do, how to keep safe. Because we can't stop living life because we are in an area that has a lot of natural disasters. The same for Japan, right? So when you try and put in that context, maybe you come from a place that has a lot of hurricanes. Maybe you come from a place that has a lot of, electrical storms, or, like I said, tornadoes. Every place has their, just for reference, daily life. This is the 6 o'clock bell, and this tells all the children under the age of grade 6 to go home. So yeah, I'd say don't worry. And hopefully that bell is not too loud. I guess we could talk about it a little bit just so that you have another idea of daily life. So especially small towns, we get like 3 bells. One in the morning to wake you up. One at lunch that sounds like an air raid siren. And that's just to say, hey, it's lunchtime. And then this one, which is to tell the kids to go home. And this one changes depending on the season. So basically, elementary school kids are not allowed to play on the playground after sundown. And so we're getting close to sundown. They'll put that on. And it's hilarious to watch these kids. They'll be all playing in the park. This song goes off and they just scatter. I almost feel like it's like, when you open up a brick or something and there's a bunch of little bugs there and you pick it up and they just go scatter. That's what these kids look like at the park. And that's another thing just to kind of add to safety. My daughter, when she entered grade 1, that was it. Like, they were like, yep, she can go wherever she wants. She just can't cross the train tracks. I'm like, what do you mean? Why? Who's giving her permission to do this, right? It is expected, at least in this town, that at the age of grade 1, the kids are independent. They're welcome to go to the park on their own. They can go to the store on their own. They can go to the children's events on their own. It's amazing. Like, there's no way this would fly back home. And the community watches out for each other. There's been a couple times that my daughter has fallen at the park, and one of the moms or even one of the older kids bring her to me and say, hey, she fell off the slide or she fell off the swing. Like, they take care of each other. And I won't lie, the first time she went out, like, my anxiety was so incredibly high. It's like, is she okay? I need to check on her. Is she okay? Like, back home, people would be bringing her home and saying, hey, she's out there alone, right? But once again, this is just how safety works here. There are bad things. There are bad people everywhere. But the community here is what makes Japan safe, in my opinion. There's so much more that I could talk about, but I'm just going to say Japan's not perfect. Japan's pretty exciting. I love living here. I'm still here. We were supposed to come for just a year or 2. I'm still here. There's going to be troubles. There's going to be problems. Your daughter or son is going to struggle, but that's okay. In general, the experience usually tends to be really good. Now, I will say, if your son or daughter finds themselves in a situation that is toxic, a bad work environment, a company that's mistreating them or exploiting them, making them work over hours, making them work outside of their contract, all of these things, they should not stay in that situation. If they ever feel unsafe, they should not stay in that situation. I say this because it does happen. Is it common? I don't think it is. But once again, like I said, Japan is not perfect. No country is. In general, though, most people who come here have a pretty happy, decent life with some struggles. So I'm hoping that this video helped you kind of reduce some of your fears, see, maybe calm some of that anxiety. And I will say, like, my goal is to be able to help people see the side of Japan that you don't see in the news. You don't see the weirdness here. You don't see the, 5 best things about Japan. You see daily life. You see daily struggles, daily excitements, daily wins. So if that's something you want to see more of, please, subscribe and if you click like, that'd be great. And of course, if you are in this situation where you're about to see your adult child, move to Japan, and you still have questions like this video didn't do it, drop them in the comments. I will, I read all the comments and I'll be happy to answer some questions that you may have. So thanks for watching, and feel free to check out some of the other videos here about ALT life and life in Japan.